Hey Project 5, welcome back to this week's episode of Take 5, episode 2 of our Mission Control Month. All right, so you're probably wondering where I am. It's a little dimmer in here than normal, a little bit more grungy, and that's because I'm at the workshop. My dad has this awesome workshop in his house. It looks like we're in a garage, but this is actually the basement, but it's our basement workshop. And this is where today we're going to be doing our craft that goes along with Mission Control this month. And I'm really excited because we're actually going to be walking through how to build what you actually built this past week in Project 5. So if you were at Project 5, we built a rocket ship. And this is the instructions, and there's a link below in the description taking you to these instructions so you can print them out with your parents. And we're actually going to be walking through this step by step, talking about how to make a rocket ship with just some things that you can find around your house. So the first thing that you're going to need is a paper towel tube. This one I got from my kitchen. We were just out of paper towels. Yay. If you're not almost out of paper towels, make sure you ask your parents to see if you can go ahead and unravel one, or if there's one that they just got finished with and put in the trash that they can dig out real quick. Hopefully there's nothing too crazy and disgusting on it. But here's a paper towel one, or if you want a smaller rocket, you can get a toilet paper roll, cardboard roll at the end of a toilet paper roll. So depending on how big you want your rocket, choose what size. We're going to do the size of a paper towel roll. And you also need paper. So it can be regular paper. It doesn't need to be cardstock. It can be, what's the other word? It can be any sort of colored paper. I just want to do cardstock because it's too thick, but I chose gray, orange, and yellow. You can choose any colors that you want your rocket to be. So I went with kind of the Project 5 color scheme. We have gray and orange, and then yellow just complements it. So this is our Project 5 color scheme for our rocket that we're going to be using. And you want to make sure you have tape. You need to have tape to tape everything together. You're going to need a ruler to measure some things out. And then you're going to need, I'm horrible at drawing circles and cutting circles. So I like to have something sort of circle-esque that I can trace and cut around. This one was just a sticker in my mom's room. That's perfect for it. So that's what I'm using. You can find something, whether it's the bottom of a cup or a bottom of a jar, anything kind of circular that you can use. And you want to make sure it's 4 inches in diameter. And what that means is from this point to this point is 4 inches. And I took my handy dandy ruler, went from there to there, and it is 4 inches, or almost 4 inches. It's pretty darn close. So that's what we're going to use today to do the circle that we need. And then you can use scissors. My mom and dad are great because they have so many different crafty things around the house. Maybe your parents are really crafty and they have different things. So I have this cool cutter that we're going to use to cut the circle. It's a lot easier for me to use than scissors. But if you don't have anything fun like this, regular scissors will work as well. So we have all our supplies. Now we are going to go step by step to put together this very cool rocket. So here we go. Let's go. Step 1 is wrap the white paper around the paper tube and tape it. So I didn't do white, I did gray. So gray is going to be my color. So you want to make sure when you wrap it that you wrap it the right way so it covers the whole tube. So the tube is longer, so if I try to go like this, it's not going to cover the whole tube. You're going to want to go up and down. All right, there we go. It's all wrapped up, taped. I taped it on the inside and on the outside so that way it won't slide off of the paper towel roll. All right, so step 1 complete. Good job, guys. Okay, step 2 is we have to get our circle for the top. So the top is like a cone, and how we get that is by having a circle. So you want to get our circle, and you're going to want to either trace it or you can cut out around it, but on the color that you want. So the color that I'm going to use is orange for my top. Okay. That went a lot quicker for you because I sped up the video, but it took me a while to do this just because, like I said, I'm not really good at circles. Even with something that's supposed to help me go around the edges much smoother, it's still a little choppy, but that's okay. So after you get your circle, you need to cut a line halfway through it. So you'll start at the edge and we're going to cut straight through. So let's go ahead and do that. Use your scissors. So if you can't find the circle, or if you want to find this perfect center, if you don't want to ballpark it, you can fold this in half and just kind of pinch just a little bit so you can kind of see where that center is. Perfect. So it's going to look just like that. All right, so once we get that cut, you want to wrap it like a cone. Wrap it around like a cone. So you'll take it, I had to think about this for a second. So you'll take it and you'll take these two edges right here and you're going to push them together until it wraps around like a cone. See, just like that. Now you want to make sure you can wrap it tightly to get a kind of tall cone like this, or you can wrap it wide and get a wide cone. For me, let's see here. For what I'm putting on, I am going to do a tight cone. So you want to wrap it and you're going to want to tape it inside so it doesn't move. So get your tape out. Get a small piece, tape inside, and then tape outside, just a little piece. You don't need much. Tape outside. Perfect. And you got a cone. Not bad. All right, so now we got to attach it to our rocket. So I'm going to want where my tape is, I'm going to want that tape facing where my tape is on here so they can all stay on one side. So we're going to put it like that, but I got to figure out how to tape it together. So we're going to tape this together, and I'm going to take a minute to do this, and I'll speed it up in the video. Don't worry. So let's go. All right, ta-da! Seems like a really small top for my rocket, and it's a little off center, but you know what? That's okay, because every project is going to look different. It's not always going to look perfect because we're not perfect. So I like my little off center top of my rocket. Kind of looks like a really tall tower, like Rapunzel. Isn't that cool? Okay, so we got our top down. We got the next step, which we need some windows on this. I mean, our people need to be able to see out. So we want to cut some windows for it. And this is where I'm going to use my yellow to cut windows. And they're going to be on the instructions, they're going to tell you circles. And this is your project. So I want you to make it as inventive as you want. So I'm actually going to either do squares or triangles. So we'll see what kind of comes out. So let's get cutting. there we go. My 3 windows. They're a little spaced weird, but it's okay. There's multiple floors on this rocket. And lots of people can see out those windows. All right, so after our windows, something even more fun that we need on our rocket is our side wings. You can't have a rocket without some wings to help it take off. So they're going to be triangles, and I'm going to do it out of orange. I'm going to continue to use this because I only used one little spot. So make sure you don't just waste paper. Make sure that you use everything you have. Now, when I make this, I want to make sure that I make them the same size. And one way you can do that is by folding the corner down to figure out how big you want it so you can see the size. Now, I think I want mine about there. And now I'll crease it, and so that way there's a nice crease and I can just cut along that. So let's go ahead and do that, and then make sure you take your triangle, put it on the other side, draw a line, and cut so they're the same size. You want them the same size, because if they're not the same size, let's be honest, your rocket's not going to take off. So let's go. Cool, I have my side wings. So now we have to attach them. So you're going to want to put them on facing this way. So it's like a right angle. So your corner that you did off your paper, you want it down here at the bottom. So they're going to look like this on your ship. Now the easiest way to secure them is going to be to fold a little piece of this. So there's a little flap. And once there's a little flap, you can tape them on just like that. So let's get to work. All right, so we got our top, we got our windows, we got our fins. There's one last thing you can add. Now you can use paper to do this. You can use tissue paper that you use to help wrap presents. And if you don't know what that is, ask your mom. She'll know exactly what that is. But you can use a bunch of different things. String, if you have string or ribbon, you can use any of that for this last part. And it is to make the stuff that comes out of the edge. So the fuel. So when you see a rocket take off, there's this like fuel coming out. Well, you can't see it now because we're in a workshop and we're making a plastic rocket or a paper rocket, but you want to represent that. So I'll take my yellow paper that I had, and I am just going to make 3 or 4 just really small strips, and you're going to put them at the bottom of your rocket. So let's do it. There. Now up close you have a fun cardboard paper rocket. Now, last thing to do is to decorate it and give it a name. Every rocket needs a good name. And every mission needs a good name, you know, like Apollo 13 or Apollo 11. And I know there's so many different other names, but Apollo seems to be a pretty popular one. Wonder what I should name this. You know what? If you have a suggestion for me, why don't you go in the comments and name it? You know what's really cool about rockets is that they're spaceships, and we have a place called NASA that shoots off spaceships every once in a while, whether it has people in it or doesn't have people in it. And there's been so many missions out to space and a space station with all the different things. But you know what's really cool is that when they're making these rockets and when they are ready to take off, they actually have a sequence that they have to go through. And it starts at, I believe, 90 hours. And you can actually get the sequence on the website. And it starts at the countdown. Countdown T minus 43 hours and counting. And what's crazy is every so many hours, there is literally very specific things that they have to do to make sure the spaceship is ready and safe to take off. So like one of the first things in T minus 43, begin final vehicle and facility closeouts for launch. So they finally make everything close, they get ready, they review the flight software. When it gets down to T minus 27 hours, they begin operations to load fuel into it. T minus 19 hours and counting. They fill the launch pad, sound suppression system water tank, so that helps with something. I have no clue exactly what, but I know it helps. Let's skip down to T minus 3 hours, and they have T minus 3 hours in holding and T minus 3 hours in counting. So depending on what happens within that holding time, flight crew weather briefing, in counting, they complete the white room closeout, whatever that means, because we don't know. But they have specific things all the way down to T minus 0, and that's when it's time to launch, and the solid rocket booster ignition and lift off. But you see, they have to go through each and every one of these things to make sure that this rocket, this spaceship, takes off safely and gets the people to where they need to go safe and sound. And if they don't, it causes consequences. If something doesn't go right, something can happen and they drift off into space when they get up there, or maybe the rocket catches on fire, or there's so many different things that could happen. And there have been instances when those things happen throughout the years. All you got to do is Google and see. And they'll show you some of the times when they didn't get everything right, because we're not perfect people. So there's a stake when we don't obey. When they don't obey these rules, there's something that could happen. There's consequences. Just like this past week, we talked about what the consequences, what's at stake when we don't obey. In our story this week, we talked about the flood and Noah. And Noah obeyed God, and because he obeyed God, he survived the flood and was able to continue the human race. And those people who didn't obey God, who didn't see what was coming, there was a consequence. And it's a rough consequence, but they died and they were separated from God. And everything we do has consequences. Think about it. When your mom tells you in the morning, make sure you make your bed before you go to school, what is at stake when you have to obey your mom? What could happen when you get home if you did not make your bed? More than likely, it's you get in trouble, whether it's getting video games taken away or screen time or more chores, whatever that consequence is, there's always something at stake when we don't obey. And when it comes to God, the biggest stake is just being separated from Him when we don't obey Him. So even though we are going to make mistakes, don't get me wrong, we're not going to be perfect. We're not always going to do exactly what God wants us to do. But there is a consequence normally that's going to happen. Something bad for us, like disobeying our parents. That's something God wants us to do. And when we disobey our parents, we have consequences. And there's tons of that in the Bible where you see when the people did not follow God, there was consequences. But He always is right there, a graceful and loving God waiting for us to run back to His arms. So when you do make a mistake, when you do forget to obey, don't worry. God is still right there waiting for you to run back to Him. All you got to do is ask Him to forgive you and continue to try harder and harder to obey Him and to obey the rules that have been put in place for our safety. See you guys next week at Project 5 and on our next episode of Take 5. Bye.